Russia's tank losses in Ukraine reached 8,000. Drones became main hunters of Russian tanks. Russian forces in Ukraine have lost almost 8,000 tanks since the start of Moscow's full-scale invasion, according to figures published by Ukraine's military. Moscow's tank losses since February 2022 reached 7,987. Newsweek says that although precise figures are hard to come by, Ukraine's statistics do offer some insight into the toll wrought by more than 2 years of bitter fighting. Neither Moscow nor Kyiv regularly offers up figures counting their own losses, and experts say any tallies put forward by one side in a conflict should be treated with caution. Back in February, the London-based International Institute for Strategic Studies said Russian tank losses had surpassed 3,000, a number greater than the number it had when it launched its offensive in 2022. In late April, British Armed Forces Minister Leo Doherty said UK estimates put Russian main battle tank losses at nearly 3,000, with total Russian armoured vehicle losses standing at more than 10,000. According to Dutch open-source intelligence outlet Oryx, which tracks equipment losses in Ukraine, Moscow has lost at least 3,139 tanks since February 2022. This count only includes visually verified losses, meaning the true tally is likely to be much higher. Kyiv's count of Russian tank losses often spikes during drawn-out battles or concerted offensives on Ukrainian positions. Ukrainian sources and open-source intelligence indicated Moscow sustained extensive equipment losses as well as casualties in the fight for Avdiivka, the former Ukrainian stronghold in eastern Ukraine that the Kremlin has controlled since February. Experts previously told Newsweek that early on in Russia's war effort, there were significant failures in organization and planning of tank assaults, as well as poor training, low morale, and ruptures in the chain of command. The most experienced tank crews were committed to the fight in the very few weeks of the full-scale war, leaving behind new recruits with few trainers to instruct them. To backfill extensive losses, Russia pulled tanks from storage and placed its defense industry on a war footing, able to refill its stocks while taking constant hits from Ukrainian forces. In late January, the British government estimated that Russia could likely produce around 100 main battle tanks a month to prop up its armored assaults. Domestic Russian tank production has increased fivefold since February 2022, Russian President Vladimir Putin said in February. Ukraine often publicizes footage appearing to show the successful targeting of high-value assets like T-90s, typically using explosive first-person viewed drones. Ukraine does not provide a breakdown of which tanks it says it has damaged or destroyed. Russia has lost at least 144 T-90 tank variants in Ukraine, according to Oryx. Russia accuses France of risking war in South Caucasus after Armenian arms deal. Russia has accused France of stoking conflict in the South Caucasus after the country this week signed a deal to sell artillery systems to Armenia. Paris is provoking another round of armed confrontation in the South Caucasus, and they are doing it in different ways. This sale is another step. Russian Foreign Ministry spokeswoman Maria Zakharova told journalists. Her comments echoed a statement from Azerbaijan's defense ministry, which accused France of pursuing a policy of militarization and geopolitical intrigue in the region and of preventing the normalization of relations between Yerevan and Baku. This policy of revanchism by the Armenian leadership is a manifestation of political irresponsibility, opening the way to new war. Azerbaijan's statement read, Armenia's purchase of the French-made Caesar self-propelled howitzers signals its growing interest in strengthening security ties with the West amid growing tensions with its traditional ally, Moscow. The agenda pushed by Western countries in the South Caucasus does not always correspond to the interests of the region's states, according to Mikhail Galuzin, Deputy Foreign Minister of Russia. Commenting on the strengthening military cooperation between Paris and Yerevan, Galuzin stated, external players come to the South Caucasus with their own agenda, which, to put it mildly, does not always align with the interests of regional states. Today, Western countries are entering the South Caucasus with an openly confrontational anti-Russian agenda. We believe that this will not contribute to stability and security in the South Caucasus. The diplomat suggested that regional security can be most effectively ensured through the efforts of the states in the respective region. He added, "We stand for regional responsibility both in terms of ensuring security and in terms of economic integration in the South Caucasus and other regions." The statement comes amid reports of Armenia purchasing 36 Caesar self-propelled artillery units from France. Azerbaijan's Ministry of Defense previously expressed concern, stating that France, a permanent member of the UN Security Council, rearming Armenia, a country with a history of bloody military aggression, and supporting the Armenian leadership's policy of revanchism, is a manifestation of political irresponsibility that paves the way for a new war. Ukrainian drones hit Russia more effectively than Western sanctions. Ukrainian drones hit the Russians with the most effective than Western sanctions. This week, the Security Service of Ukraine blew up 4 Russian oil depots at once. Ukrainian political scientist Taras Zaharodny writes about this. The expert reminds that the current attacks are far from the first. The drones of the special services, in particular the Security Service of Ukraine, systematically destroy the enemy's oil and gas facilities, which are the most important for the Russian budget. Maliuk's subordinates have already carried out more than 20 successful attacks on the facilities of the Russian oil complex in various regions. And the fact that drone sanctions against the Russian oil refinery of the complex are among the most effective, Western analysts and the press also recognize. Zaharodny believes. The political scientist emphasizes that the affected oil depots supplied fuel to the Russian army in Ukraine. The fires at the oil depots were so large-scale that the Russian authorities were forced to admit the effectiveness of the strikes. In particular, the governor of the Rostov region did this, and later on the progress of extinguishing began to be reported to the enemy's Ministry of Emergency Situations. The case, when to hide a fire that can be seen for many kilometers around, is simply impossible. The oil bases in Tambov region and Adigay are still not repaid, the expert emphasizes. While the Western press is evaluating the long-term effect of the new American sanctions introduced last week, the Russians are forced to extinguish the fresh sanctions. I think we will see which refinery or oil depot Ukrainian drones will drop the new package on in the near future, the political scientist summarizes. It will be recalled that earlier, it became known that Ukraine blew up 4 Russian oil depots at once. First, 2 large oil depots caught fire in one night from June the 17th to the 18th. We are talking about the oil depots Azovska and Azovnaft product. The Russians could not put them out even after 2 days, although they even brought a fire engine to extinguish them. And on the night of June the 20th, special agents of the service struck the fuel and lubricants warehouse of Tambovnaft product, JSC, and the Enemska oil depot of Lukoil Yugnaft product, LLC. These objects are burning in the Tambov region and in the Republic of Adigay.